Giuseppe Verdi lived from 1813 to 1901. Notice that he and Richard Wagner were born in the same year, and that he and Queen Victoria died in the same year. Although his surname clearly is Italian, the final I in his surname has indicated that for all the Italian composers we have encountered so far in this course, and although he was born in the Italian-speaking part of Europe, he was not born in a country called Italy. In fact, he was born in the Duchy of Parma, a protectorate of the French Empire that was ruled by one of Napoleon's sisters. Although he created fine works in other genres, including his famous setting of the Requiem Mass, he, like Wagner, is known primarily as a composer of operas. Whereas Wagner acquired his knowledge of operatic composition largely through practical experience, by editing and performing operas, Verdi spent several years in full-time study with a distinguished composer who was a conductor of operas in Milan in preparation for his career. Verdi wrote one opera after another during his 20s with mixed success. Most were received with at least moderate interest, and one actually was greeted with outright hostility. He scored his first great success, though, when he was only 29, with an opera based on the story of a biblical character, Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon. His rise to fame was hastened by the fact that his surname, Verdi, eventually became a symbol for Italian national unity. Indeed, the very letters of his last name, V-E-R-D-I, spell out a phrase that was seditious in the Italian-speaking world of the first half of the 19th century, Vittorio Emanuele, Re d'Italia. The phrase, Victor Emmanuel, King of Italy, could be construed to be treasonous because the rulers of the many little countries in the Italian-speaking world did not want to surrender their realms and their personal power to create a single Italian nation-state. In fact, when most of the Italian-speaking world finally was gathered into a single country called Italy, Victor Emmanuel, the Duke of Savoy and the King of Sardinia, a popular choice for the first king of Italy, actually did become its ruler. Verdi's success was such that he could retire early, and he purchased a substantial estate near his hometown when he did so. There he led the life of a country gentleman, and he basically did whatever he liked, accepting the occasional operatic commission and even serving a term in the Italian Parliament. His retirement was not to be permanent, however, and this had nothing to do with any upset in his personal fortunes. Indeed, there were others who profited, and who stood to profit further from Verdi's work, including his publisher, who wanted the composer to come out of retirement in old age. In fact, Verdi's most notable librettist was enlisted by Verdi's publisher to make this happen. By the way, although Verdi often worked closely with librettists, he, unlike Wagner, never wrote his own libretti. It was Arrigo Boito, himself the distinguished composer of a true operatic masterpiece based on Goethe's version of the Faust legend, Mephistopheles, and a close friend of the composer who sometimes served as his librettist, who ultimately convinced Verdi that he should once again devote himself fully to the exercise of his art. Although there certainly is considerable variety among the many operas he produced during his almost 60 years in the field, the works of his old age, for example, quite shocked many because they differ considerably from his much admired earlier works. Verdi's operas tend to be more typical of their time than are those of Wagner. For example, although Wagner avoided writing arias, out of a concern that such songs served the singer better than they served the drama, Verdi made full use of all the traditional types of operatic music, including aria, in his works. Indeed, Verdi's gripping arias, as well as his splendid choruses, particularly those of his early operas, make his operas noted and popular for their many catchy tunes. Although he scrupulously served the cause of drama in creating his works, Verdi, unlike Wagner, certainly did not avoid writing alluring melodies in doing so. In fact, whereas Wagner often makes his singers bellow so as to be heard through his dense orchestration, Verdi maintains a much more traditional balance between orchestra and voices, showing off the singers' voices to their greatest advantage. This judicious balancing of the concerns of art and of entertainment probably account for the fact that Verdi has been, and probably will continue to be, the most performed of all operatic composers. Indeed, no opera season seems complete without the performance of at least one Verdi opera.